Every act is born twice, first in thought, then in motion. Yet between the two lies a hidden thread: intent. It is intent that gives an action its moral weight, its direction, its soul. Two hands may perform the same deed, and yet one redeems while the other corrupts. The difference is not in what is done, but in why. Intent is the invisible architecture of ethics. It shapes not only our choices, but how we interpret the choices of others. The thief suspects theft because he moves through a world built in his own image. The pure-hearted are betrayed because they imagine others to be as sincere as themselves. Both project what they carry within. To understand the world, then, is to understand intention, not as a fleeting impulse, but as a mirror of the inner life. It reveals character, exposes deception, and anchors conscience in the quiet space between desire and action. The mirror of motive. We rarely meet the world directly. We meet it through a lens ground by our own habits of heart. Motive is that lens. It colors what we take to be obvious, what we praise as virtue, and what we condemn as vice. The thief who believes that everyone steals is not describing humanity. He is disclosing himself. Suspicion becomes his worldview because suspicion is his way of being. Likewise, the naive do-gooder who assumes that everyone thinks and feels as he does is not encountering universal goodwill. He is extending his own sincerity outward, mistaking projection for perception. In both cases, what seems like discernment is often autobiography. Cynicism and naivete, then, are mirror errors. Cynicism is a confession masquerading as caution. I know what you are because I know what I would do. Naivete is an innocence untested by complexity. I know what you are because I cannot imagine willing otherwise. Each distorts the moral field. The cynic blinds himself to genuine goodness and corrodes trust before it has a chance to grow. The naïf blinds himself to malice and invites betrayal by refusing to see it coming. Both are, at root, failures of imagination. One cannot imagine virtue, the other cannot imagine vice, and so both misread intention in the wild. Clear seeing asks for a different posture. Humility without helplessness, charity without denial. It does not begin by assuming the worst, nor does it demand that hopes be facts. It holds two possibilities at once, the best we can reasonably attribute and the worst we must responsibly prepare for, and lets conduct over time decide between them. This posture treats first impressions as hypotheses, not verdicts. It listens for patterns. It allows that people, ourselves included, are mixtures of light and shadow whose intentions can mature, fracture, or be refined under pressure. The work begins within. Before we judge another's motive, we ask after our own, what outcome do I quietly want from this interpretation? What fear would be comforted by assuming ill will or by assuming none exists? Would I endorse this same reading if our roles were reversed? Would I act the same way if no one knew? These questions do not accuse, they clarify. They cool the heat of projection and let intention, ours first, then others, come into focus with fewer distortions. Over time, time itself becomes the auditor of motive. An isolated failure may be an honest mistake. A repeated pattern of harm, explained away and shifted onto others, reveals intention drifting toward convenience or malice. Conversely, a record of repair, acknowledgement, amends, changed practice, reveals intention bending toward the good, even when outcomes lag behind. This is why purity of intent matters, not because it guarantees success, but because it orients the will toward truth and makes growth possible. We learn to see others more justly when we consent to be seen more honestly ourselves. The weight of intention outcomes matter. They leave scars or gifts in the world. Yet outcomes alone cannot tell the whole moral story. Two identical results can be born of radically different interiors. One from care that miscalculated, another from malice that succeeded. Intention is the unseen vector that gives an action its direction. Competence and circumstance give it magnitude. Consequence is the resulting trajectory. Wise judgment keeps all three in view. It neither excuses harm because someone meant well, nor condemns without asking what will was at work. The difference between an honest mistake and a deliberate sabotage is not a matter of vocabulary but of anatomy. Malice plans, conceals, and selects means that instrumentalize others. It chooses deception when truth would hinder, chooses harm when harm advances its end, and chooses to benefit from the wound it inflicts. Error, by contrast, lives in the open. It is transparent in aim, proportionate in method, and when shown its failure, eager to repair. Where malice doubles down, error repents. Where malice hides, error discloses. These are not abstractions. They are behavioral signatures that time reveals. Still, intention does not wash away responsibility. If I harm you through negligence, the wound is real. The first duty is repair, not self-exoneration. Intention guides blameworthiness, but responsibility anchors accountability. We can forgive without pretending nothing happened. We can demand restitution without collapsing every failure into villainy. Moral maturity holds this tension. Purity of intent invites mercy, but harm calls for remedy. Both can be true at once. A useful set of tests clarifies the field. Transparency. Would I take the same action if everything were visible? Proportionality. Are the means calibrated to the aim, or do they exceed necessity? Consent and risk. Who bears the danger, and did they agree to bear it? Willingness to repair. If this fails, am I prepared to make it right at real cost to myself? Malicious intent fails these tests in pattern. Good intent may stumble once, then change. Cultures and systems, like persons, declare their intentions by what they reward. When institutions prize metrics over truth, they incentivize harm dressed as success. When they honor candor, proportionality, and repair, they cultivate the conditions under which good intention can become good practice. Purity of intent is not naivete. It is the disciplined alignment of will to the good, even when that alignment is costly. It does not guarantee perfect outcomes, but it makes learning possible and trust rational. Practices of discernment from ideal to habit. Purity is not a feeling, it is a discipline. It begins with small refusals, the refusal to hide, to offload risk onto the unconsenting, to win by wounding, and matures into habits that make good intent legible. The work is local and daily. Before we act, we name the real aim. Before we justify, we test the means. Before we demand trust, we accept that time will audit what words promise. Intent is clarified not by declarations, but by practices that can be repeated in ordinary circumstances and under pressure alike. The first practice is interior clarity. Ask the mirror, not the crowd. What outcome do I quietly want? What fear is guiding my interpretation of this situation? If I were the one affected, would I consider this fair? These questions soften self-deception without collapsing conviction. They transform impulse into intention by bringing desire into daylight. Often we do not need a new principle, we need fewer places to hide from the ones we already claim to believe. The second practice is proportionality in means. Ends do not sanctify every route toward them. A good aim pursued by excessive force stains itself. A noble goal achieved through deception mortgages the future with undisclosed costs. Proportionality asks, is the method fitted to the stake? Have I minimized collateral harm? Am I bearing my share of the danger, or exporting it to those with less power to refuse? Pure intention accepts limits. It would rather proceed slowly and cleanly than quickly with residue. Third comes transparency calibrated by context. Not every matter deserves total exposure, but most harms grow best in shadows. The daylight test is simple. Would I be willing to have my reasoning described accurately to those affected? If I must conceal the logic from precisely the people who pay its price, the intent is already compromised. Transparency is not voyeurism. It is the decision to let those who carry the consequences see the scaffolding of choice. Then, consent and repair. Consent is the moral hinge that turns strangers into partners. It is the difference between sharing a risk and imposing one. Where consent cannot be secured, as in emergencies, repair must be pre-committed. A clean intention shows itself in readiness to make whole, to acknowledge harm without evasion, to restore at real cost, to change the practice that produced the wound. Saying sorry without changing the system that made sorry necessary is sentiment, not ethics. Discernment also has an interpersonal cadence. Begin with modest trust and let patterns earn more. Believe first in what people show you consistently, not only in what they claim occasionally. Keep boundaries that protect the good you intend to give. Clear scopes, clean exits, documented agreements, thresholds where no is both permitted and respected. Charity without boundaries becomes easy prey. Boundaries without charity become brittle control. Held together, they make care sustainable. Finally, institutions reveal their intent by what they reward. Metrics that prize speed over truth, output over honesty, or appearance over accountability will slowly train good people to do the wrong things for the right reasons. Design environments where candor is safer than concealment, where proportionate means are recognized, where repair is supported rather than punished, and where responsibility is shared rather than outsourced. Culture is the memory of many choices. Over time, it teaches individuals which intentions are livable. These practices do not guarantee perfect outcomes. They make learning possible and trust rational. They do not eliminate risk. They share it. They do not foreclose failure. They prepare for it, and they refuse to let it harden into harm. Purity of intent is not innocence preserved. It is conscience exercised again and again until it becomes the shape of a life. The line that holds every act is born twice, first within, then in the world, and the world feels the second birth. We cannot command outcomes, but we can choose a compass. Intention is that compass. Responsibility is its ballast. Repair is the proof that the compass points where we say it does. Purity is not the claim of flawlessness. It is fidelity to the good across time. The thief and the naif both misread reality by mistaking the mirror for a window. One sees only vice, the other only virtue. Clear seeing walks the middle path. It neither suspects all nor trusts all. It looks for patterns, tests claims against conduct, and lets time verify what words propose. In that space between paranoia and credulity, intention becomes legible. The line that holds is drawn by practice. Name the aim, fit the means, share the risk, keep the work in daylight, pre-commit to repair. These habits do not erase harm. They prevent convenience from hardening into malice and make trust rational rather than romantic. They turn purity from sentiment into structure. Mercy and accountability can live together. We forgive the honest mistake because the will was aligned with the good, and we still make the wound whole. We judge sabotage as sabotage because the will chose harm, and we refuse to baptize it with outcomes. Direction, not perfection, is the test. And direction is shown in the costs we are willing to bear for the sake of what is right. See clearly. Will the good, act proportionately, repair what you break. Let this be the quiet strength you carry. Not innocence preserved, but conscience kept.